You are listening to Diasporic Music on Black Power 96 with Melinda Francis, Norman Richmond, and Lisa Watson is on the buttons. And we just heard from Doug Karn and Gene Karn. And Gene Karn, the great vocalist who was sang, she was on Philadelphia International, she was on Motown. She is fluent in Russian, believe it or not. Very talented sister. And her former husband, Doug Karn, his Muslim name is Abdul Rahim Ibrahim El Rahman. And he is a musical genius. And joining us on the line from Los Angeles, California is Harold Welton. Harold Welton is a former member of the Black Panther Party. He was a former member of SNCC. He's currently working on, he's a servant of the people, and he helped work on the release of Rochelle McGee. He does Black August work, and he's an E-man, E-man, the everything man, like Jimmy Castor would say. And how you doing? How you doing, Brother Harold?
I'm doing great. Greetings to all, and thank you for that great compliment. Yes, sir.
We're getting ready to celebrate the 100th centenary of Malcolm X. Now we know Malcolm X was born Malcolm Little. He became big, Detroit Red. He became Malcolm X. He became El Hajj Malik El Shabazz, and he went to Nigeria. And he became. They gave him the name Omowale, and I think Omowale means either the son or the child that has come home. And I'd like for you to talk about, like Malcolm X. The whole question of Malcolm X. Islam, socialism, and we can't say that Malcolm was a socialist because he basically said he was learning about socialism and he was not hostile. He was not hostile to socialism, but he was a Sunni Muslim at the time. And we have in the contemporary situation we have Ibrahim Traore, who is also I guess he's Sunni Muslim, but he's an anti-imperialist. Could you talk about, like your relationship to Islam and, how Islam and how Malcolm X fits into the struggle for African liberation in 2025?
Okay, I became aware of Malcolm when I was about, I think, 11 or 12 years old. My parents used to listen to a real talk show back in the day, TV talk show, Louis Lomax. And I remember them watching an interview of Malcolm. I didn't know who he was at the time. Well, I was a kid. But I found it interesting, that, wow, they don't like Malcolm. The white folks don't like Malcolm. But my parents were had another mindset. They weren't necessarily political, but they, it seemed like to me at that time, they were, happy to see Malcolm speaking. And this was in Los Angeles, this interview occurred. And I remember them talking about, white folks in terms of what they were doing in the 60s in the South. And okay, so all right, there's something about this man, Malcolm X. Later, Malcolm was on another talk show here in Los Angeles. I can't remember the talk show host. He was a liberal, if you will. And Malcolm was on that show. And I
It
think
wasn't. It wasn't. Pardon me. It wasn't Joe Pine, was it?
Joe Pine. Yeah, the Joe Pine show. And okay, this guy is on to something, not necessarily articulating that way as far as I was. So I moved into the high school era, and I started looking at life another way, though it was not positive in terms of how I was growing up, right? So I think I was 16 years old, and I got kicked out of Fremont High School here in Los Angeles, right? And my mother and father had broken up by then. But when I got kicked out, my older sister, rest in peace, she was very, very concerned about me, an older sister, younger brother. So I don't know if you're aware of a brother named Nat Turner here in L.A. Well, he's in New York now. Raymond Turner.
Raymond Nat Turner? Oh, yes, sir. I'm familiar with him.
Okay. Yeah. Well, my sister and him were friends at Fremont, right? And he gave her the book, The Autobiography of Malcolm X. So one day I came in from school, manual arts at the time, and my sister, she had a certain look about her, not a mean look, but it was like a mother's look, only older sister's look. So she said, I want you to read this book. Why? Because you're on a slippery slope, and I want you to read it. And I looked at her, okay. It was the first book I read cover to cover without being held at gunpoint by the school system. And I think it took me about 2 days to finish the book. I couldn't put it down, right? 16. And I was like, oh, man, this brother's on to something. He went to prison. Well, he went through a life of robbery and street life and other things that weren't in the realm of I'm on my way to college, right? And Malcolm went to prison, I think in 1944, and he started educating himself. And one thing that really impressed me was Malcolm read the dictionary from A to Z. And I said, you know what? I'm going to do that. Though I didn't finish, I found Malcolm to be very, very, at that age, a very, very intelligent person, right? And he made a great impression on me. And I gave the book to my brother, younger brother, and he read it. So Malcolm had been assassinated by that time, February 21st, 1965. And so we grew up in the Avalon Garden Projects, and we were close. Our friends, we were close because we were in that community, right? And all of us read the autobiography of Malcolm X, and we all said we were going to read the dictionary from
cover to cover.
A to Z, but we didn't. We tried. But that was a point in my life where my life started changing, and in terms of Black liberation now. And Malcolm was the primer. Malcolm was the primer for a lot, as you know, Norman, a lot of us in that generation. You had the civil rights struggle, and then you had the more militant Black liberation struggle, which the Panthers and different organizations came out of. I always like to say that Malcolm was the great light of SNCC when it became revolutionary, the Black Panther Party and other organizations. He was that light that sparked us. we quoted Malcolm a lot. And yeah.
I don't want to cut you, but let me ask you this. When you were growing up, when I was growing up, we grew up in the same city. In terms of Islam, the only Muslims that I knew were the Nation of Islam. They were at 5606 Broadway, right off of Slauson. And then you had the Ahmadiyas, and I never knew where the Ahmadiyas met, because we didn't have the 5%ers on the West Coast. But when you were growing up, what Muslims were there? The same set of Muslims, or were the Sunnis there when you were growing up?
Okay, it was the Nation of Islam. Our first connection of the Nation of Islam was like in the early 60s, before Malcolm left the nation. I remember it being in the news, right? Muslims, I think it was 3 Nation of Islam Muslims were killed on Broadway. Might have been 2 by LAPD. That was the news then, right? I remember Nation of Islam members coming into the Avalon Garden projects and talking about that, selling the paper. I knew some older brothers in the Avalon Gardens who were in the nation. Maybe about 3 or 4 were in the Nation of Islam. So we got exposed to that at a young age, and I didn't necessarily have a desire to become a part of the Nation of Islam, but I had that respect for them. They were always dressed, as you know, in their suits, and they seemed to be different. They seemed to be very, very respectful of people when they came into the projects, and that was my first exposure to the Nation of Islam. I remember we used to walk, believe it or not, from the Avalon Garden projects to that area, and that was, like you said, it was on Broadway. What was it, 55th and Broadway?
5606 Temple 27. Yes.
Temple 27, and we'd see, we didn't go in, we'd see members of the Nation of Islam, Fruit of Islam, security standing out front, and that impressed us. Also, I remember there used to be 2 theaters on Broadway, a street called Broadway in Manchester. And I remember that the Nation of Islam would be selling papers on all 4 sides of that street, all 4 corners of that street. So that was, again, more exposure to the nation. Again, I didn't necessarily want to be in the Nation of Islam, but I respected them. Yeah.
You're listening to Dire Spoken Music on Black Power 96. I think you and I could talk forever and ever, but Melinda probably has some questions for you.
Okay.
I'm just thinking about, what's going on current and bringing in if Malcolm was able to live with us longer, what he would be saying, what's going on now. Would he say that, we haven't moved anywhere? Like, I feel like we're going in circles. Just a comment of what he would think is, going on now, especially with his connection to Gaza and
Okay, I believe it was 1964 after Malcolm left the nation. Malcolm actually visited Gaza in 64, and Malcolm built a relationship with a lot of the revolutionary leadership in Gaza. Malcolm was talking about anti-Zionism back in '64, probably before that, but in '64 for sure, and the need for new African people in this part of the world to recognize the struggles going on in the so-called Middle East. And I remember Malcolm talking about Algeria, the struggle to kick the French out of Algeria. And this was later on, listening to different recordings and reading about Malcolm. So Malcolm had a very strong internationalist outlook on life. He visited other countries in the motherland, Africa, but Malcolm was, again, not like us. When I say not like us, I'm talking about some of the leadership that we see now. Not that I'm criticizing all the new leadership in terms of the young people. They're working with Coalition to Free Rochelle McGee, Black August Los Angeles. There are a lot of young, articulate, principled young people out organizing now, and they're very wise in how they approach liberation. And Malcolm, again, especially with my comrades and I growing up in Avalon Gardens, he was had a very strong influence on us. In fact, we used to try to imitate the way he talked, but it was a respectful thing, you know. And one thing I would like to say about, among others, Malcolm had a great sense of humor. Malcolm, how did he paraphrase it? Huh?
So he was a funny man. He was
a funny man.
He had a comedic side to him.
Yeah. One quote that I used to love, and I'm paraphrasing it, he was talking about the civil rights struggles, right? And he was saying, you got some of these black preachers telling our people to take beatings, paraphrasing now, take beatings and be nonviolent and pray and for the white folks, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. He said, as long as they've been whooping your head, they know exactly what they're doing.
They're experts. They're experts at it.
Yeah. So I love this sense of humor, not then, and I love it now. You know.
But you said I want to cut you. You said you never went to 20, so you never heard like John Shabazz, Abdul Allah Akbar, because all of the ministers sound like Malcolm, including Minister Farrakhan.
Yep, I agree with you.
All of them.
Yeah. And as you know, and maybe if some don't know, Malcolm was a great influence, a great builder of the Nation of Islam in terms of spreading the number of masjids across the country. There's this, when Malcolm came to L.A. after LAPD killed the Muslim brothers, it was a great turnout in L.A., and Malcolm was well received. And he was, I think, one of the prime movers of the growth of the Nation of Islam back in that time.
And Al Prentice Bunchy Carter joined the Nation of Islam because of Malcolm, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, Bunchy was part of the Nation of Islam, and I'm not 100% sure, but I think at that time Eldridge was a part of the Nation of Islam when he was in prison.
Yes, he was.
Yeah. Good friend of mine that I grew up with in the Avalon Garden Projects, his name was Louis Daniels, right? I forgot his Muslim name. He was in and out of prison, and he had a great influence on us. He was very positive. He didn't use profanity, which we loved that because Malcolm didn't. And he was in the nation later on, as I became, I think, 20, 21 years old, I met Louis. And so he was a great influence on us. He didn't preach. He educated us. And wherever he is in this universe, I always think about him and respect him for the example that he led. I can't think of Rahman's last name. The brother that grew up with us, he's around our age. He became a member of the Nation of Islam, and he's still a member of the Nation of Islam. We don't see each other as much as we used to, but he was influenced by the Nation.
Have you ever seen a photograph of Kwame, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad Kwame? I forgot all the Cortland Cox and people like that. There's a picture meeting all of those. A lot of the SNCC people were meeting with the Messenger Muhammad.
With meeting with Malcolm?
No, they were meeting with the Messenger Elijah Muhammad.
No.
All you got to do is do a Google image.
Okay.
But we're running out of time. But I just want to say that my father, who I respect and loved dearly, he couldn't stand Elijah Muhammad. He said, let me put it this way: majority of the people in my family. Let me stop lying. On my father's side, well, you just mentioned the fact that they had the shootout at the Nation of Islam. My cousin, W.D. Williams, owned the grocery store, and he owned the cleaners. They were taking clothes. He was a part of that whole shootout thing. They were taking some of the clothes from his cleaners to the mosque, there. And my father. He thought Elijah Muhammad was just another Baptist preacher.
Well, I might not disagree with you. You said your uncle?
No, my daddy.
Your dad? I might not disagree. I don't think I will disagree with it. But I wanted to say some quick things about Betty Shabazz and the strength that she had before and after Malcolm was assassinated, and the way she raised her 6 daughters, Malcolm and her 6 daughters. Now, my mother essentially raised 5 by herself, and I always respected that about not just Betty, but Malcolm too. But after Malcolm left this life, I always had that respect for Betty Shabazz. And as you know, his father and mother were part of the UNITA Marcus Garvey movement. So Malcolm had that influenced him almost from birth. He was, the 4th of 7 children. Finally, I always think about the fact that Malcolm had 6 daughters, and I have 4 daughters. I call them my unappointed security team. It's respect, though. I love my daughters, and I like that. I always think about the fact that Malcolm had daughters, and they respect him, love him to this day. And he was. He still is a great light in my life.
Last question, I'm gonna let Melinda ask the last question, but my last question is: what is taking place in Los Angeles? Are there any events commemorating El Haj Malik El Shabazz Omar Wali in the Los Angeles or Southern California area?
Okay, they had something yesterday here in Los Angeles, but on the 17th of May, there's a group called PSL. They were one of the groups that were part of the Coalition to Free Rochelle McGee. They will be having a event May 17th it's an organization called the Chucos Justice Center. And it's going to be going on from 10, I think, until 4. So I'll be a part of that. And we're working right now to, set it up and get as many people as we can to the Chucos Justice Center, May 17th, 10 a.m. to about 4 p.m. So, yeah, the centennial, the 100th anniversary of the birth of Malcolm X, El Haj Malik Al Shabazz.
Let me ask you the close.
Yeah, I'm wondering, you dropped, I mean, I didn't know, but like you dropped that you're a filmmaker. Are you working on any films?
No, I did Liberation of Fremont High and Jackson, not just the name. I am part of a project that this young sister's directing and producing, and it's going to be called Brother George, right? It's about George Jackson. And she seems to be doing a good job with the documentary. So whenever I can, whenever she needs some help, I help. And it's coming along, and hopefully it comes out soon. George Jackson. I didn't find out until years later. She told me they also had another name for George, like the letter G-E-O, G-O. So, yeah, so that's what I'm working on now in terms of filmmaking. But finally, I wanted to say this. I hope I answered the question. Finally, I wanted to say this. Some people think that J. Edgar Hoover and the FBI and their counterintelligence assassination jail functions started in the 60s. Actually, Malcolm and the Nation of Islam were under surveillance in the late 40s. Malcolm in the early 50s was under surveillance, and from that point into the point he died. And when Malcolm was assassinated, there you'll see, look it up, like Google it, you'll see a person giving Malcolm artificial respiration, right? That's Gene Roberts. Gene Roberts was a part of the New York intelligence kill unit of the New York Police Department. He was also responsible for setting the New York 21 up, 21 Panthers who were accused of plotting to bomb shopping centers, railroads, etc., which was a lie. They were all released. Afeni Shakur was a part of that, Tupac Shakur's mom. So, yeah, Malcolm wasn't under surveillance because he was talking loud. He was under surveillance because he was an effective leader and organizer.
That is correct, my brother.
Yes, sir.
And thank you for your contribution, and we will be in touch with you sooner than later.
All right. Thank you all. And I'll be listening to the rest of the show. Let me say this real quick. I talk too much, but I love that ending, Spiritual by John Coltrane. I love the way it comes in.
John William Coltrane from Hamlet, North Carolina.
and people ask me about John Coltrane sometime. I say, yeah, he walked on water as far as I'm concerned. You believe that? Yes. Okay. All right. Thank you for allowing me to interview on the station. Good people. And I'll be, like I said, I'll be listening to the rest of the show.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Until we win.